Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of the Top of Off podcast. And for our listeners who listen regularly, you all have realised that we didn't do an episode yesterday. We didn't release an episode yesterday. And the reason for that was that Jacob was climbing a mountain. Yeah, he was climbing a mountain in Wales. But we are now...
We also didn't release one the day before because of the washout. Nothing happened.
Yeah, because the day was washed out, so we would have just been talking about nothing really. So we thought, well, let's just make it worth your while for our listeners, and decided to just record one today. So we're going to be looking at the action of day 4 from the second test between England and the West Indies in Old Trafford, and it's a very exciting day. Jacob will give us our overview of the day, and then we'll get into our talking points.
Yes, so the West Indies began day 4 batting with 1 wicket down after, on the evening of day 2 before the washout, John Campbell was dismissed LBW by Sam Curran for 12. However, conditions had changed significantly since that day, and wickets were few and far between for the England bowlers. There began a pattern of West Indian batsmen really frustrating the English attack. First of all, night watchman Alzari Joseph, lasting quite well into the morning, eventually being dismissed by Dom Bess. He was caught at short leg by Ollie Pope off a Dom Bess delivery for 32, leaving the West Indies 70 for 2. This became slightly repetitive, as roughly every 20 or so overs and quite a few dozen runs, another West Indian batsman would be dismissed, but after giving England some severe frustration. Next to fall was Shea Hope, nicking through to Joss Buttler off Sam Curran on 25, leaving the West Indies 123 for 3, until finally Ben Stokes dismissed Craig Brathwaite on 75, caught and bowled, which brought in Ruston Chase to bat with Shamar Brooks. They then went on to frustrate England again. Brooks the next to fall after 82 overs on 242 for 5 for the West Indies. Brooks himself on 68, bowled LBW by Broad. Blackwood was the next to go, bowled by Broad on 248 for 6. And then Dowrich came in and again was bowled LBW by Broad on 0 for leaving the West Indies 252 for 7. A fantastic spell after the second new ball, in which Broad took 3 wickets for 1 run off 14 deliveries. Jason Holder, the captain, was then removed by Chris Wokes on 2. Ruston Chase made his 50 before being dismissed on 51, again by Wokes. And Gabriel was bowled by Wokes to leave the West Indies 287 all out after 98.6 overs. In need of quick runs to push the lead over 300 and give themselves a good chance to bowl the West Indies out today, England sent in the big guns to effectively play a short form game. Stokes and Buttler opening. However, Buttler was bowled by Roach while trying to push on and score, bowled by Roach on 0. And then Crawley came in, made a quick 11 off 17, and then was also bowled by Roach, leaving England with Stokes on 16, Root on 8, and they were 37 for 2 overnight.
Yeah. It was a very, very tense day. What a day of cricket. That's the first thing to say. It was
absolutely
a spectacular day all round, Very, very balanced for both sides, because both sides still firstly have a chance to win this game. Both sides can lose this game. But also the draw is still a big option in this game, and it's probably probably the most likely outcome. Right. First things first, Stuart Broad. We need to talk about Stuart. And he's spoken, I think this morning or last night, he did an interview, and one of his media appearances, he said that he wants to play as long as Jimmy has, and he wants to keep going till he's Jimmy's age. And he said that he said something along the lines, and the gist was that I think I showed today that in my performance that I am able to bowl just as well now as I did at the start of my career. And so I should be allowed and should be given the same opportunities by England as Jimmy to go on and continue playing until I'm that age, because I can still perform, and I showed that today. So did his spell yesterday, which was really good and really did open up the day for England. Did that show how important he is still to England?
Yeah, I think it did. I did a mini kiss of death, and I've done a few of them over the last few days, and I'll talk about another one in the context of Dom Bess later. But I did a mini kiss of death in that I was listening to the coverage up a mountain, and was thinking, oh, actually, Stuart Broad hasn't taken a wicket yet. He's been going for 20 odd overs. He's conceded 60 something runs, and he hasn't taken a wicket yet. And maybe the whole furore over him not being selected for the first test, maybe that was slightly unjustified. Maybe maybe he's quite a flat pitch, but he's usually the man who makes things happen.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, they take the second new ball. He destroys the West Indian middle order, completely obliterates it, and I'm left feeling rather silly and going, oh, maybe Stuart Broad still has it. And it seems he does. He's a very good bowler. He's one of our greatest ever bowlers. I think, again, this is similar to his little rant when he wasn't selected. I think this is, again, another message he's sending to management of, I can still go. Don't make plans for me to be gone in 2 years. I'm not going to be. He wants 3 or 4 more years. And as he said, it's kind of hard to disagree with him. If he can continue producing at the rate that he does, if he can take, as Jimmy did, over 100 more wickets in the next 3 years, there's no reason that he shouldn't do that. However, I think it's important that, particularly in terms of the Ashes preparation, as we've talked about, you give people like Mark Wood and Jofra Archer and so on preparation and experience, because as good as Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson are, we've seen that they don't always do their best work in away Ashes series when you need more pace. And I think this Old Trafford pitch really proved that, because the conditions radically changed from the first 2 days. The pitch was very flat. There was no movement. There was nothing happening for the bowlers. And England's very swing-based Broad, Wokes, Curran, Stokes attack looked a bit toothless until the second new ball. They didn't really look like they had a chance of taking a wicket. And so that's a perfect example of, like when you're in Australia, the pitch is hard, it's flat, it's hot, there's not a lot of movement, especially using the kookaburra rather than the dukes. So even when the second new ball is taken, you're still using a kookaburra, it's not moving as much. So you need people like Archer and Wood who can give you that pace and still provide the movement, but also just batter it in. And I think that was sorely missed in England's attack. And if they'd had that, it seems likely that they would have been able to set this game up a lot more in their favour. And also wouldn't have had to rely on scoring runs as quickly today to try and get over 80 overs at the West Indies so they get that second new ball again.
A lot was said, especially during the morning before that spell from Broad. A lot was said about had Jofra been in the side for this test, how those conditions would have suited him a lot. And I mean, Michael Vaughan said on the commentary as well. He was one of the ones who said that the way that the pitch was yesterday and the way it will be today really cries out for a bowler like Jofra. So obviously his sort of missing of this test will directly affect this team, and has done in the way that they can set up this game and their options for this game, because their main their main rationale all throughout the day, especially the England bowling attack, was let's get them out for over, when they're trailing by over 200, so that we can still enforce the follow on, because they needed to take 19 wickets in 2 days. But obviously that didn't happen, and yeah, it's put the pressure now back onto the batting attack, in that they need to be progressive and score. And maybe they tried too hard yesterday, with their with Butler dragging back onto his stumps, and then Crawley also being bowled, and it puts more pressure on them now. So everything is increasing pressure. And every little thing that is done, is so important now. Every decision matters in this game now, and I think that in the present, in the absence of Jofra, this England bowling unit still made a very good account of themselves. They still did very well, and especially when they got that second new ball, and it shows that they couldn't create anything when the ball wasn't doing as much, and when the pitch wasn't doing as much. But as soon as they got a ball that was new and still had the shine on it, they were able to make something happen. But yeah, again, the question is asked, and there will be this series of what ifs, in that, what if Jofra was still there? Could he have done something, purely with his pace, with a ball that wasn't doing much? And the answer is probably yes. But obviously we will never know for sure, because he didn't play this game.
And it felt sort of desperately unfair that when the West Indies had their first bowling innings, they came in and bowled, and the old ball still moved through 80 overs. It was swinging massively, and they beat the outside edge so many times, and they actually held off on taking the second new ball because the old one was swinging so well. And then England they get a washout day, then conditions completely change, and the ball is doing nothing. I think the follow-on, if Jofra had been there and could have taken a few wickets, or just if England had managed to bowl out the West Indies, in the late 100s, early 200s, they'd still have a lead over 300. They could enforce the follow-on very happily.
Yeah.
And it would make this game much easier for England. The question I want to ask you is, now with this pressure on and stuff, does Jos Buttler, after his performance in the last 2 innings, is he starting to lose his place in the Test team? Is it time for him to go?
Ooh, I was thinking about this yesterday, and this actually did cross my mind yesterday. Seeing him on TV, you saw how much it meant to him. So when he did drag back, you saw on his face, when he realised that that's it, his innings is over. He wasn't very happy, and you saw a guy who was trying and does really want to play Test cricket. Because his reaction when he was bowled out was his reaction was quite, there's a lot of passion in there. There's a lot of emotion in there. So I do think that he genuinely wants to play this format of the game. Let's not forget he made a 40 in the first innings, and 40 isn't huge, but he didn't have to make a huge score because Stokes and Sibley had done that already, and he just needed to make something quick. So that was a condition, that was a situation that was perfectly suited for him, and he did, you could say, rise to the occasion. And it would have been nicer had he made a half century, but even a 40 is respectable there. So I don't think that Jos Buttler should lose his place in this side. I think that he's still he still has a lot to give to this team, and he still is valuable. And his wicket keeping is still very good. And yeah, there are other players who can be mooted in his place, like Ben Foakes. But I still think that the selectors and I still think that the coaches should and will trust Joss, or not trust, but have faith in Joss, and give him a chance, because I mean, it's been a long break for everyone. Before the break as well, Butler was getting back into Test cricket. He was being brought back into the side from last summer. I think that he just needs a few more games, and hopefully he'll be hopefully he'll come good in that time. So I don't think that he should lose his place at all at this point. I think it's premature to say that. And I think that give him a little bit more time, give him a few more chances to prove himself. Even if it's just the rest of the summer, and then at the end of the summer, after that second test against Pakistan, you turn around and then have and the England management and the England selectors and coaches turn around and have this sort of conversation with him and say, well, depending on how it goes, if it doesn't go very well for him over the rest of the summer, they turn around to him and say, well, we think it's about time that that we made a bit of a change, and maybe it's time for you to just focus on the ODI and T20 form of the game, where you're so good and you're one of the best players in the world. But I think it's premature to do that now. I think that conversation should wait till the end of the summer, because I do just think it's a matter of time, and I do just think that give him a few more innings and he will find his rhythm in Test cricket. So that's my view.
I disagree, actually. I think he probably should go, because he's meant to be a quick, big scoring player.
Yeah.
When was the last time he made a big score for England?
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time he even made a half century, let alone a century. I think he made a century in 2018.
Yeah.
But he really hasn't done much since then. The last tour to South Africa, his batting performances were pretty weak. And now there's been a lot of pressure on him. They've got folks in the squad, but are very reluctant to use him for some reason, despite him being one of the best wicket keepers on the county circuit. And Butler performed pretty weakly with the bat in the last game after a poor tour to South Africa. The pressure was on him, and they said, okay, people made it a bit of an excuse for him. They said he's not really that much of a Test player, and that fact is he looked really uncomfortable playing Test cricket in a slower situation game, like some of the ones in South Africa, and some of the situations in the last Test when we really needed to grind it out and play longer, like Stokes and Sibley did. He looked extremely uncomfortable, and then they come into this game and they go, okay, Joss, you need to redeem yourself a bit. Here are two innings situations which are perfect for you. They exactly suit your skill set. The first innings being you've got to come in, make a quick 50, 60, 70, even 80, really push our lead ahead, strike rate of 100-ish, get on with it, and he holds out on 40, because uncharacteristically for Joss Butler, he couldn't clear the boundary. And then he went for a bit of a silly shot and didn't time it right. And then in the second innings, they've literally said, Joss, you're one of the best T20 players in the world. This is now a T20 game, even a T15 game. Go out there, smack a few, play like a T20, as you do. This is the perfect situation for you. Make runs quickly. And he went for a really poor shot, didn't have his eye in, didn't have his timing in, tried to force it and chopped it back onto his stumps from about 5 yards outside off stump. And it's like, if you can't deliver for us in these situations which are perfect for you, and you look severely uncomfortable in any other Test-based situation where you're actually required to play Test cricket, you shouldn't be in the Test team.
Yeah.
Yes, his wicket keeping is fantastic. Until this Test, I don't think he dropped a catch in 2 years. His wicket keeping is great. but wicket keepers are not just wicket keepers anymore. They're now wicket keeper batsmen. And Ben Foakes is a very capable wicket keeper. He's very consistent, and he's a good batsman. And he definitely should be given this opportunity, especially after he went to the West Indies and struggled in the West Indies, as a lot of people did.
Yeah.
But he should be given a chance in England, at least against Pakistan, to play some international cricket this summer, because Butler, he's had endless chances to show that he can be a test player, and in any situation, even the ones which seem perfect for him, he's looked very uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point. So you think that he should go the way of like Johnny Bairstow and sort of
Yeah,
and
he
and
should,
and, and Moeen Ali to an extent as well, and just and they just say
definitely do that. I think if you just stick him in the ODI T20 side, he will strengthen that side to no end, and
yeah
will be, if he's just in that and not in the test team, he will be a really permanent and secure fixture in that team, keeping it strong in the batting lineup,
yeah
and probably could end up and maybe would end up being captain of England in the ODI and T20 format, because once Owen Morgan retires, Stokes will be moving about. You probably don't want to make him
yeah
captain of either team. Bairstow and Roy, you probably don't want to make them captain. Butler's the man in that team probably to
yeah
make captain.
yeah. That's
So I think that's where he's best placed, and I think he'll enjoy himself most there, because that's where he can score runs.
yeah.
Um, However, now having said this, he will go on into the next test and make
Yeah.
double centuries and
He's going to
over
make
500
in the
balls,
next.
and I will look very silly.
I mean that it's not a bad thing for England. Maybe we
No,
should
that would be
do more of
fantastic, but I would look like an idiot. Speaking of my kisses of death, Dom Bess, I
yeah. We
raved
need to talk
and
about this. Yeah.
raved about how
Mm.
consistent he is, how much control he gets on the ball, how fantastic he is, and how nice that is to see in a young England spinner. Then Sky News do a piece, not Sky News, Sky Cricket do a piece on how, in the innings, in this Test match, his length has been not quite there and either too full or too short.
So the stat was that Roston Chase, uh, I think it was in his bowling innings, 43 or something like that. Yeah, 43 or 45% of his deliveries were on what you would regard as sort of a good length and attacking length for an off spinner. Then they had a look at Dom Bess's bowling innings, and just 29% of his deliveries were on that length. And so
Yeah,
there was a definite not an under well maybe an underperformance, but there was a definite something went wrong yesterday for Bessie.
yeah, his length was off. He was getting creamed a lot on the
Yeah,
offside. His length didn't match his field, and I feel really bad for him, because I thought he's a great spinner and he will be really good for England. I think now, obviously, everyone has a bad day. I
yeah,
think he's had a bit of a poor Test match and so far, and I think, other than his batting's actually been very good.
yeah.
But yeah, this bowling
Maybe
innings.
his name is Steve Smith, and they're promoting up the order, and
Yeah, maybe he could do
and
that. He could be the guy they brought in to bowl a bit of spin, and then they actually promote him to number 3, and he becomes the world's best batsman. I
yeah,
don't think that's going to happen. It could. I don't know anything. It seems all
yeah.
the predictions I make
Well,
are wrong.
now that you said it's not going to happen, it is, and this
Yeah,
time
it's
next year
my
we'll be
fault.
sitting
It is
here.
my fault that Dom Bess is not Steve Smith. However,
Well, this time next year we will be sitting here, and he'll have his average of 62 or whatever, and we'll be like, "What is
we'll
this?"
look like right dummies. But yeah, I feel really bad for him, and I think
Yeah.
he could be the man for England in the spin department.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, he provides a bit of batting as well, which is nice. But the question is, can he just up that consistency? And I think we've seen him over such a relatively short time in this last 2 years improve so much
Yeah.
after his work with
But the
Wenger and
thing
Herat and
to
so on.
the
So I
thing
think
to
if he
remember,
carries on working on that,
Mm.
he's 22.
Yeah,
He's got
he's a young
time.
player.
He will be a good spinner, but he's just had a bit of a mare in this Test
Yeah,
match.
but I mean, the thing to remember as well is that this England team, I mean, one of their strengths is the strength in depth, and that goes especially for their bowling attack and their pace bowlers and their off spinners especially. They have a huge wealth of, especially quality ones and especially young ones. Um,
Well, if we're talking young off spinners, I believe there's something we have to mention.
there is, and we will mention it after I've made this point.
Oh, right.
That's what, yeah. I was just going to say that um, there's sort of there's almost no place to hide in that because there are so many. There's always someone to take your place. So I mean, Don Best has had a bad game, but then at the same time, he didn't perform as well as we thought he would last week as well. On day 5 of that Southampton test, when we all thought that he would be different in that last day. So I think that there is there is something to be said for that. Maybe the pressure of being in such a high profile, such an important position in these test matches, um, is affecting him, especially because he is a young player, and he doesn't have that experience of handling that pressure. But also, when does it get to the point for England of them saying, well, let's give someone else a chance and let's just see what they can do? I mean, I don't think we're at that stage yet.
No.
Yeah, I think it would be premature to say that Don Best needs to go because he doesn't. He still needs to prove himself. But when do we get to that stage of them actually having these conversations?
Well, it's a nice problem to have as an England coach and as an England fan. It's very pleasant to be able to go, well, if you mess up, there's the next man in
Yeah.
of equal or very pretty much equal quality. For a player, that's actually kind of a nice problem to have as well because it forces you to get better. You can't get complacent and just stay
Well,
there,
that's it.
and
There's
so it
nowhere to
helps the
hide.
team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think we can blame him for the day 5 of the last test. The pitch really didn't deteriorate and become as spin friendly as we thought it would. But yeah, he's had a bit of a problem this test, and I think he needs just to go away, work on it, and come back. And he's still England's first choice spinner, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you there. Talking about England spinners or potential England spinners, yes. Yesterday, when so that was
The day we are covering.
Yeah, the day we are covering, and also Sunday for our listeners. So Sunday, the 19th of July, was a very special day as it was Amar Virdi's birthday, and I think he's 22. I think it was 22nd birthday.
Yeah, very special day for the podcast.
Yeah, because as you all know, he is one of our favourite players, and he's also the one that we think has a lot of promise for England, and we just really want to see him get his Test debut. But yes,
however, knowing us, he'll probably be terrible.
I do hope not, but yeah.
I hope not too, but knowing our record on predictions, he'll come in and
it's very true.
be
Now that we've said
reassured.
it's promising, we're very sorry, Amar, but if there is any sort of negative impact on your game, that will be our fault. And we
Amar, if you're listening, if your first test over goes for 36, it's because we said it.
Yeah.
It's our problem. It's not you. Just carry on.
But we do want to wish Amar a very happy birthday. And
very happy returns indeed.
Yeah, and we hope that you'll be able to come on the podcast and we can wish you happy birthday in person. But yes, let's see what happens.
I think we'll have to tag him in this the social media again.
I mean, I sent him a tweet yesterday, I sent a tweet out on our Twitter account, and I didn't get a response though.
Do you think he's just going to send back a restraining order?
I think so. I think because we've tagged him like 3 or 4 times now, so it probably is. It's getting into that sort of dangerous realm now.
Yeah. Oh well. It's his fault for having a birthday and being good.
Yeah, that's it. But yes, happy birthday, Amar. That's one of our key things that we wanted to say in this podcast and in this episode. Yeah.
Moving on.
Day
Jofra
three.
Archer.
Oh,
Jofra Archer.
Joffre
Did,
first. Joffre
did
first.
he get his? Did he get his punishment? Should he play the next test? Because he's been cleared to play. He's been fined and given a written warning.
Well, he
so is
returned
that enough
to training.
punishment, or should he not play?
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, let me give you my take. I think he should. I know I'm contradicting myself from the other day, and I said he shouldn't play, but I've changed my mind. I think now that he's been given a separate punishment of a fine of an undisclosed amount and an official written warning from the ECB, he's had his punishment. There's no reason to punish the team with his absence over it.
Because
especially in what could be a deciding test.
Yeah,
he's been punished. He knows what he's done. He knows he's hurt the team. Move on. Let him play.
I mean, the main thing is that the main thing to think about is that this is now, it's not just an effect on him, it is affecting the England team. Performances yesterday, as we said right at the start of this episode, yesterday's bowling performance, just imagine how much different it would have been and how much different this game would have been had Jofra been there. So yes, I agree with you that he's had his punishment. And to be honest, it's not just the ECB and the fine and the warning they've given him. The media and the public reaction, I mean, it's been punishment enough, because Jofra, he will have been in his room, but he will have had access to a TV. He will have had his phone, and access to social media, and he will have. I mean, obviously, you would hope that he would be able to resist, and you'd hope that someone would say to him, "Listen, now's the time to look at social media." But the curiosity will take over, and he will have looked at Twitter, and he will have looked at Instagram, and he will have looked online, and he will have seen what people are saying, and he knows the strength of feeling that will have come up, and just how visceral the reaction has been, both from the media and from the public. So that's almost punishment enough, knowing that everyone is annoyed at you, knowing that almost everyone unanimously thinks that you made a really big mistake. That's punishment enough. So yeah, he has had his punishment. And I think it's been a valuable lesson in that, not only when you play at the level of cricket that he plays at, when you play top level cricket, not only are you responsible for your own actions, but you're always going to be in the public eye, and there's going to be no way you can escape it. And especially if something goes wrong, if you make a mistake, people will jump on you. And I think in the end, it has been a valuable lesson for him, in that now he sees just how extreme this reaction can be sometimes, and just how much he has to watch what he does all the time. And it's not just that's not to make him feel like, well, I constantly have to watch my back. It's nothing like that. It's more in the sense that he now has to think, well, I constantly have to be responsible for my actions, and I constantly have to think, whatever I am doing at the moment, how will it come across? Is it right to do this? Is it worth me doing this in the long run? That's what he has to think about. So I do think that he's probably, his punishment has been given. There's no reason to punish the team. Yes, and also I think that this England team, and I think that the ECB, again, probably informed by their experiences with Kevin Peterson as well, and other players in the past. I think that they have no intention of punishing him any further, because he returned to training yesterday. So he must have both his tests must have come out negative. And so yeah, he returned to what they call controlled training yesterday. So he was in the nets, with a special group of coaches. And he was getting back into stuff. So I do think that they're sort of almost determined to play him in the next test, and they're they are really going to look to do that, and hopefully nothing goes wrong before that, and nothing happens to stop that from happening.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. So again, moving on, day 3, the washout. How badly did that affect the game, or positively did that affect the game? What
So
how severe was the impact?
um,
How dull was it?
so obviously day 3 was washed out. It was. I mean, that's Test cricket for you. So it was washed out, and obviously we thought at the start, and I suppose everyone would have thought on Saturday when it got washed out. Well, this is boring, and well, it's going to be, this is dull. But look what it's given us. It's given us a final day where anything can happen. And
Hmm.
to be honest, had day 3 not been washed out, had we had a full day of cricket, we probably this episode would probably be our last one of this test match because it would have been finished by this point, or maybe there would be 5 overs bowled on day 5 and that's it, or something like that. So it's really it's much like how the first day of the last test was very patchy and there was only 17 overs bowled. In that, what this has done now is really set up the last day of this test match to be really tense and really exciting. And we have two cracking test matches back to back, basically, which is spectacular. Um, I did see. The one thing I want to mention with that is that I did see someone say on social media, um, or I think it might have been on the BBC Live text feed. Someone texted in and asked, how come, especially given that there's no spectators for this game, how come they haven't put a reserve day in, and how come they can't go into Tuesday and make up the time and play yesterday as day 3, play Sunday as day 3, today as day 4, and then Tuesday as day 5. And actually, I don't think they should, because Test cricket is, part of Test cricket is the rain, and it adds that strategic element. You have to plan around rain delays. You have to plan around what the outfield and what the pitch is going to do with the rain, and with the overhead conditions. So they shouldn't get rid of that. And also, had they put had they put a reserve day in to play, day 5 and not lose any time in this test match, um, well, it wouldn't have been as exciting because we would have known the result. It would have been just a your bog standard match, finished in 4 days and that's it. But this is brilliant. For the first time since the 1950s, England played 4 different openers in the same test because they had to
Yeah.
they had to strategically adapt, and the West Indies have had to adapt as well with how they're going to bowl. And that's part of the game. That's what makes Test cricket what it is that you have to it's almost like a game of chess along with a game of cricket, because you not only have to play the sport, but you have to play the mental games as well. You have to play the strategy as well, and that's what makes the sport great. So obviously T20 games, ODI games, they have reserved days. Of course they do, because they're a different type of the sport. They're played differently as well. They have their own rules on how you play and how you go about playing. But to say that Test cricket should no longer have rain delays is, I don't think that's the right attitude to take. But also in terms of the practicalities, it will almost never happen because broadcasters, don't want to be out there for an extra day. It costs them money as well. When we have spectators back, you can't just then suddenly, give everyone who had day 3 tickets to day 5. And you can't transfer everyone's tickets over. Not everyone's going to attend. You'll reduce attendances even more. So what's the point?
I think you make a lot of good points, and as an objective perspective, as a cricket fan, someone who loves the game, all that's right. It's part of the game. It's part of the crazy game that we love,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we just kind of have to deal with it. But then if you can understand why people are upset, particularly in this country, because if you go from a perspective of an England fan on this test match,
yeah.
the washout really hurt England. It really did.
Oh yeah, yeah,
In a couple of ways. First of all, it just took so much time out of the game, made that draw a lot more likely, and swung it away from an England win, which it probably would have been were it not for the washout, especially with the conditions the way they were going.
yeah,
So it probably would have been a win for England. So now they really have to fight to keep the Wisden Trophy from going back to the West Indies, because the West Indies obviously hold it. So even if this Test match is drawn, England can't win the series; they can only draw it, and so the West Indies retain the trophy. Also, it hurt England even tactically factoring in the rain delay, because the follow-on was the key thing for them.
Yeah.
The follow-on marker is 200 runs behind, and once the West Indies pass that, they could avoid the follow-on. There is an area in the law which says that if a day is washed out, the follow-on can be reduced to 150, which would have really helped England. They could have still enforced the follow-on, I believe. However, the issue is it can only be reduced if day one is washed out, not day three or any of the other days. So it's only if the first day is washed out, which is really, even factoring in a rain delay, the rain delay has hurt England tactically. And so,
I mean, what that shows is it's a reminder that the sport, especially of Test cricket, Test cricket. I mean, what that shows is that Test cricket is 300 years old, and it's proven there in rules like that. And yeah, they should be updated like that. But we definitely shouldn't get rid of fundamental parts of the game, like the strategy that surrounds rain delays, and how you react to that, and how you change your strategy to make the best out of the conditions. I do think that it has made these final stages more exciting. That's one thing to say, but also it has hurt England, and I will admit that, and it will have an effect on the series, especially as this is just a 3-game series. If this was a 5-game series, having one game as a draw, well, that's fine. But when you have when you have one game as a draw in a 3-test series, it's very different. So there's good and bad on both sides, I think.
I think, as well as a reminder of how old Test cricket is, we got a stark reminder of how modern it is when we saw for the first time this series the umpires having to sanitize the ball with a wipe after Tom Sibley had admitted that he inadvertently put some saliva on it, which obviously they can't do. Luckily, it doesn't go down as ball tampering, but it just has to be sanitized. Right. Star player, moment of the day, word of the day?
My star player from England, Stuart Broad, yesterday, because he really turned this game around, or he turned that day around, especially. Because before that, we thought, well, the West Indies are going to cruise to this 200, and then, England will probably get them out for maybe a lead of 100 or something. England will have a lead of 100 when they're all out or something, but it won't be enough. And then Stuart Broad, within sort of 2 or 3 overs, turns around and says, well, this game is now very different, and after his spell was done, it's obviously when Broad is in one of those moods, and this is one of the great things with Stuart Broad, is when he gets into that spell, he's unstoppable. So when he gets into the rhythm, we saw that now where he took 3 quick wickets. We saw it, obviously, the most stark example is back in 2015 when he took in that Ashes Test where he took 8 wickets against Australia. And it's that spell. From the West Indies, my best player today would be Ruston Chase, in that he made the 50. Ruston Chase or Craig Brathwaite, in that they both made.
Have I frozen?
Oh yeah, you have.
I promise you, I haven't gone to sleep. My Zoom is. It should be back. Hang on. Sorry.
Is all good?
Sorry, dear listeners and viewers. My Zoom has messed up, and I now look like I'm just taking a nap.
He looks like I bored him.
Yeah, hang on. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. I've moved my laptop.
Hello. I'm sure that for viewers, you might have noticed that it is just me and Jacob has disappeared. And listeners, you are now aware of this fact. Jacob has had some network issues, some internet issues, so he is not his Zoom wasn't working and everything, and he wasn't able to stay in the call. So he's no longer in the call. But I'm sure you guys remember that just before he cut off, we were discussing our star player, moment of the day, word to describe the day, as we usually do. So he's actually texted me his sort of answer to the questions for day 4, and I will now read them out. So I'm going to read those out, and then we will end this episode there. That's what we will do. So he's texted me. His star player from England was Stuart Broad, for the same reasons as I had, which was that he turned this game around, and he really was influential in pushing the game England's way, or even balancing the game out in the middle of day 4. From the West Indies, he says Roston Chase for his fifer that he took, but also the 50 that he took, both very valuable in this Test match, and he's become the first West Indies player since the 1950s to take, or I think the first West Indies player ever in England to take a Test fifer and 50, make 50 in the same game. So that's very valuable from Roston Chase there. So yeah, that's his player of the day. His moment of the day is Broad spell with a new ball. Those that sort of 3 wickets taken in 14 balls, because it turned this game on its head, and it really turned this game around. And I agree there that it really did. That was my moment of the day as well. So we're in broad agreement here. So his star player from England was Broad. His star player from West Indies, Roston Chase, and I agree with both of those. His star player, not star player, his moment of the day, his most the moment that stood out to him was Broad spell with the new ball, and I agree with that, because it turned this game around and it really evened this game out and balanced it. So I really agree there. He said his word of the day, he's texted me, is even, because the game was very even before this, and it's still even going into day 5, and today or yesterday, and the events of day 4 really highlighted how finely balanced these teams are, and how there's not very much to pick between them. And I agree. So my word of the day would be balanced, for that reason, because this game is so finely balanced. You could even say tense or poised. It's very tense going into day 5. It's going to be a cracker of a day. So he's also said he's given you, our dear viewers and listeners, his apologies for the disruption that was caused today, and for everything that's happened today, in terms of Zoom and everything. And yeah, we had a bit of a disrupted episode. But he will try and sort that for tomorrow. He's promised you guys, and he's given you his words that he will sort that out. So yes, it should be okay. It should be all sorted by tomorrow. So very luckily, so we should be all right. We should have Jacob back to give us his stage guidance and advice. But yes, that is all from us. All from me in person, and Jacob also signs off and says goodbye. One last thing is that tomorrow we will do our overview of day 5, and hopefully we'll have a guest in with us for that. And just a reminder, you can get in touch with us at #TOOpod on Twitter, emailing us at topofoffpodcast@gmail.com, and messaging us on Facebook and any other social media that we have. And that, as they say, will be that. So thank you and goodbye.